ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। ओम शिष्य आत्मसमर्पण। कार्पण्यदोषो उपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। ओम। Okay, so we are in the second chapter's 20th shloka. The shloka goes like this. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. So, as we have seen, the shloka number 19 and shloka number 20 are kind of taken from the Upanishads. Now, we have seen what is the mantra in the Upanishad. We also looked at what a brief story of what is the dialogue that happens between Nachiketa and Yamadharmaraja, and where in the Kathopanishad this mantra comes, and what is the change. This is something that we covered in our previous class. So we will continue looking into what this shloka says. Na jayate. Na is not. Jayate is born. Mriyate is death. Va is or. Kadachit, at any time. Na ayam bhutva. Na is not, ayam is this, which is a reference to the Atma. And bhutva means having come into existence. Bhavita will become in the future. Then va is or, na bhuyah, comes into existence again. Okay, so it is not that this Atma has come into existence and will become non-existent in the future and come again to existence later. So it is not a cyclical thing. And here Bhagavan qualifies it by saying the property of the soul, that which you call as I, is Ajah, unborn. Nityah is eternal. Shashvatah is again eternal or permanent. I am this, as in this Atma. Puranah. Puranah is that which is old but always continue to exist as new. Pura api navam is Puranah. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. This is a pretty straightforward one. Na hanyate is not killed. Hanyamane, upon being killed, sharire, of this body. So this is what Bhagavan says here about the qualities or the attributes of what we call as the soul, what we call as I. And this has been very, scientifically analyzed a lot. We have done it in the past. We will continue to do it in the future also to establish why it is so. But for now, we will continue to see what this shloka is giving as a message for us. In tradition, we call this shloka as referring to Shadvikara of the body. This is something that we all know. What we do not know is asti, existence. Right? But everything else is something that we have experience of. Jayate, we are born. Bhagavan says, na jayate. Vardate. Vardate is where we grow. Right? So we were born so small and we started growing, and the growth stopped at one point in time. Right? This Vardate is referred to in the term Puranaha. Then the third one, or the fourth one, because if you take Asti, it becomes the fourth one. It is Viparinamate. So after you have attained a specific growth level, thereafter you keep on changing. The hairs are growing gray and all those stuff, right? The skin is starting to wrinkle. Everything, there is a change that we can see. That aspect of it is called as Viparinamate. Then that Viparinamate is represented in the word Hanyate. Then Apakshiyate. Apakshiyate is qualified with the word Shashvatah. Apakshiyate means the Shashvatah means opposite of that. Apakshiyate means that which deteriorates. Right? Our body starts to deteriorate. And here Bhagavan is saying Atma doesn't go through that. That is what the Shashvatah represents, the quality of apakshiyam in the body. Then vinashyati. This is qualified by the words na mriyate. So in tradition, we try to translate this shloka into the Shadvikara. These 6 properties are called as Shadvikara that this body goes through. And this Shadvikara is not applicable to the Atman. That is the main concept. And that is the other aspect of it also. If the Atma was also changing, the Atma will not be able to witness the changes that are happening in the body. Right? So that is also changing, and that is also changing. There is no permanence. That permanence is required to witness the change. And because we are able to witness the change, there must be something which is not changing, which is witnessing this change in the body. So Ajah is the property, that which is not born. Nityah and Shashvatah. They seem to be the same. If you take the English word, it is exactly the same, the way that we translate it. But we change the meaning with a subtlety attached to it. Nityah is something that is having a continuous presence, cyclical presence. Right? We can see it in that way also, cyclical presence. Shashvatah means permanent, which is everlasting. So the example that we give is the sunrise is Nityah. It happens every day, as in regularly, at all times. Right? Now, the law of karma is Shashvatah. It is permanent. Right? The law of karma doesn't change. That aspect of it is what we need to understand, that by telling that it is ever present and also eternal, what is emphasized is that this soul is beyond the time and continues or also expresses itself in the time. So one of the things that we say is, when we talk of Parabrahma, right, we talk of the Chaitanya Swarupam and we say that is what is Parabrahma. That is a wrong understanding. The Parabrahman represents both the manifested and the unmanifested and potential aspects. Everything put together as a single unit is called as Parabrahma. So that we distinguish and also understand that it is not anatma, does not have the, or is not constituent of the Ishvara. This clarification is given, saying Atma is both Nityah, which is bound within the cycle of time, and also Shashvatah, beyond the cycle of time. Purana is, again, this is a very important concept. Pura api navaha is Purana, that which is old and yet remains new. This can be attributed in both Nityah and Shashvatah. That is again an important attribution that has to be made for one to conceptualize the term called as I, the term called as soul, and then realize that this objectification always changes. Even the objectification of I will change, but the I remains unchanged. So being able to overcome the objectification, identifying the subject as an object, and removing the objectification and realizing that subject is the concept that is being spoken. That is why Ajah, Nityah, Shashvatah, and Purana are put together to represent the term Atman. Then the clarification that is issued is about Kadachit. Kadachit is at all times. Right? So that is the normal way that we say. So it is bound within the scope of time. Does it mean we are just repeating what Nityah is saying? Not really. Because the text, the Agama Shastras, speak about Mahapralayam. It speaks about Brahma, the Chaturmukha Brahma, having 100 years, of which even one day is extremely large. Let us not go into the time cycle right now. But at the end of the 100th year, at the end of the 360th day of the 100th year, there is something which is the entire creation is absorbed back into the potential form. This aspect is called as pralaya. The term kadachit is to emphasize that even during the pralayam, while all the objects get into the subject remains. To emphasize that it is at all times and beyond time is the main purpose of telling Kadachit, to remove the doubt about Mahapralayam. Moving on, in the Bhashyam, Acharya says the same thing. Na jayate, as in na upapadyate. Jani lakshana vastu vikriya na atmano vidyate ityartah. Basically, the 6 kind of vikriya, the changes that we spoke about, Shadvikara that we spoke about, is not applicable to the Atman. Ityartah is the meaning. Na mriyate va va shabdah cha artah or chartah. Cha artah is and. The term va can be used in terms of or, it can be used in terms of and, right? And inclusive and all those kind of various things that you can attribute to the term va. So here Acharya is emphasizing that it must be seen as and not or. Na mriyate cha iti antya vinasha lakshana vikriya pratishidyate. Right? So here the important aspect is na mriyate is not dying, cha iti antya vinasha lakshana vikriya pratishidyate is eliminated. right? So basically, the destruction, vinashalakshan of the end is not applicable, is eliminated, is the way that Acharya presents his observations. Right? The intent is the property of destruction, which is considered to be natural, is eliminated as a possibility on the Atman. That is the representation that Acharya has made. Now, there is one more clarification that he has added to say that the, there is a punarukti possibility. You are saying about the change again and again. The reason why he wanted to clarify is said that the term mriyate is not merely a death as is visualized by somebody. Right? Say, for example, there is a paper, I totally tear it up and it is dead. It is dead. Right? But what here the clarification is, any change that happens is an end of a previous state and a beginning of a new state. So even the change is included within the term mriyate. Right? And mriyate va kadachit is included to emphasize that. So we need to understand that death is not just what we have defined ourselves for our convenience. We have to attribute the property of death, and that property of death is changing of one to the other. And this one to the other change happens at all times in all of us. And that change is not applicable to the Atman. That is the nuance that Acharya touches at this point. And again, kadachit shabdah. This is a long one, so I will go directly into the English translation. Right. The word kadachit in the shloka is to eliminate the possibility of all kinds of transformations. Right. The Shadvikara that we spoke about. The transformations are only related to the body. So it must be understood that kadachid refers to Atma never being born or facing a death. Right? So that is the way, in fact, subsequently, Bhagwan himself will clarify it. Right? And we will talk about it. But herein, the emphasis is for Acharya to lead it towards those expressions of Bhagavan. The cycle of birth and death has been established in this shloka through bhutva, referring to being born, after being born, becoming non-existent, and the cyclical nature is of the body, is only of the body, is what is established through bhutva, bhavita, va, na bhuya. This is how Acharya expresses. The word Ajah and Nityah are thus established because that which did not exist comes to existence is called birth or creation, and that which has an existence and no longer has an existence is called death, which is applicable only to the objects. Anything that you have objectified, even your thought, right? As soon as it comes, there is a brightness in you, and then it slowly diminishes. There are lots of doubts that come into it, and after some times, it has totally vanished. As an exercise, try to think in terms of how many things that you thought yesterday comes to your mind. And you will be surprised that sometimes we would have not remembered even a single one, even from yesterday. Right? So that is the nature of anything that is manifested, that comes or takes a form. That which takes a form is called as the object. And this change is applicable to all the bodies of objects, is the emphasis that Acharya puts here. Given the shloka's expression as na jayate mriyate va kadachan, the Ajah and Nityah are addressed in this entire shloka. That is what the emphasis of this shloka is. Yadyapi adyantayoho, right, vikriyayoho. I will again skip the Sanskrit rendition, right, but pretty easy, right? It's a very straightforward one. Pratishede sarva vikriyaha pratishidha bhavanti tathapi madhya bhavininam. So we will skip into the English. The way that it is said is, although with the creation and destruction, or beginning and the end, transformations becomes eliminated. For Atma, though all transformations were inherently eliminated, the expressions or manifestations that come in the middle in which one can see transformations is addressed specifically by Bhagwan. So here, the important aspect is inherently, intrinsically, it is eliminated. And that is the place where we are talking about the scientific approach of it, which is one of the ideals was to say that, there is a constant transformation. So for something to continue to transfer, there has to be a base, and that base is the Atman, the soul. For something to be witnessed as transforming, there has to be an unchanging witness of that. And hence, the Atma is unchanging. And so on. We can talk about several such possibilities. But idea here is the change is not applicable to the Atma, is intrinsically and inherently addressed by Bhagwan in this shloka, is Acharya's understanding or Acharya's expression in the Bhashya. For that purpose, the elimination is done in this way. Though it was already told, the changing state of youthfulness, etc., to eliminate all possibilities of transformations, the word Shashvatah has been told. So now he is linking the term Shashvatah, which is what we did earlier when we were talking about the traditional teaching. That is why he said, what we have spoken in the traditional teaching has the base on what Shankaracharya has used in his Bhashya. So we will be repeating that most of the time, but these are all in the words of Shankaracharya, and what we originally spoke about are elaborations or more finer way of communicating the idea. I don't know if you had the opportunity to hear the last week's class, you will see that is a new way of representing. Right, the core concept that we spoke about during the last week was to identify how the karta and bhokta are related. What is karma? And we try to use that karma as a mechanism to identify what is the role of Atman in terms of the Chaitanya Swarupam, and why is it that the Chaitanyam suddenly identifies itself as separate from the whole. Okay, it is because it is Chaitanyam, it does it. And how it does it, etc., we discussed in the last class. Right. So these are all our expressions based on the understanding that is rooted in this Bhashya. So though it is a repetition, we are going to go through that in the class. Now he is talking about Shashvatah iti apakshaya lakshana vikriya. So we will go into that. We spoke about it in terms of what is apakshayam, the feature of decaying, viparinamate. Right? Then we went into apakshiyate. That apakshiyate is the deterioration that happens to the body. So he is trying to bring it to that. Let us see what Acharya has said. The feature or the aspect of decaying, for that matter, any transformation, is rejected with the term Shashvatah. The aspect of being unchanged is due to not having parts or limbs. We did speak about it a couple of classes before, in which Shankaracharya had established that for something to be undergoing a change, it must have a limb. It must be having a limitation in terms of a relationship or in terms of having components. And because Atma is not based on component, it is always the full, it doesn't undergo these changes. So our general observation of any whole is a whole comprising of parts, because our buddhi is made to dissect things to understand. Right? So it has a logical interpretation, and logic can only be applied when there is a interpretation based on components and parts. I just gave an example. Car has its own components like engine, transmission, etc. And because Bhagavan or Atma or this Chaitanya Satsvarupam, it exists as a base and as a whole at all times. It is only the misconception which creates the division, not the reality. The reality is it is always whole at all times, a wholesome at all times. A pot has a space, a house is space, but space is the example that we give. We give the concept of what is that with no parts. We take the Akasham, space, as an example for that. Right? We have spoken about it earlier also. A pot, when I move it, has the space inside the pot moved, or has only the boundary that the pot was divided into has shifted while the space remains the same. That is the example that we give. And the other reason is because Atma is beyond the influence of the three guns, the manifestation. We spoke about it in the last class also, where the guns are what the objects are made of. That Prakriti, we say it as Maya, is Trigunatmika. That which is made of three guns is Maya. There are three varying forces. And that we can realize in us also. Sometimes we are lazy, sometimes we are very action oriented, and sometimes we are very enlightened. And we can say that enlightened aspect is referring to the Sattva gun. The very action oriented aspect is referring to the Rajogun. And the lazy or laid back or not taking a risk, being very reserved, that kind of a withdrawn level is called as the Tamasic gun. These three guns take their ashrayam on the Atman. And hence, Atman is different or free without any influence of the three guns. And because of that, the kshayam, the depreciation, the reduction in the value or decaying does not take place in the Atman. Another scientific approach as to why the Atman is free or can only be free of the influences is established here. With the use of the term Purana, the old age, one of the 6 transformation, has also been negated. When something is born due as a result of parts coming together, then the concept of newness or growth becomes inherent to it. Again, a very important concept. The reason why things grow old is because of the interactions that are happening between the parts, even at the atomic level or whatever we say. Right? We say that the atoms in the most solid thing is still vibrant. And there are physics theories and other things about it. And because they are made of components, they are subject to getting these 6 transformations. This is again Shankaracharya's outlook. 700 AD we are talking about. And since the Atma has no limbs or parts associated to it, the word Purana is used to emphasize that it remains the same at all times. And then he concludes with saying, in emphasizing na hanyate hanyamane sharire, Bhagavan clarifies that the concept of the soul, the Atma, is different from that of the Sharir. And that the transgressions that happen with the sharir does not impact the soul, which includes like weakness or sickness, etc. Right. So person will be, literally in the deathbed or in extreme pain. But then when he sees something joyous, that joy automatically comes up too. For such things to happen, that Atman or that base has to be free from the influences of the experience that the object is undergoing. And that is what is the emphasis here in saying hanyate hanyamane sharire. So that is how Acharya has expressed it, which we have further tried to study, grasp, put it in our own words, and carry it across in our tradition, which is more applicable to today's day and age at all times. Here, Bhagavan talks about the Hanti aspect of it. Oops. Oh, Hari Bhaiya's, maybe he has some limitations on the time. I think they have that 40-minute thing, right? So that could be one of the things. Let me try to send the recording to him. Okay. Hanti atra vipariणामार्थो drishthavyah, etc. He says. The use of the term Hanti should not be seen as a punarukti, as in a repetition. Rather, it should be attached to this concept of change. We spoke about it a bit earlier, where it is the change that should be seen as death as well. Death of an old state and a birth of a new state. The Vakyartham, as in the meaning as established by the entire verse or sentence, is that the 6 types of changes the body undergoes has no impact on the soul, and that the soul doesn't go through any change whatsoever, the change that you can think about. It doesn't go through this. And Acharya says that in this manner, the previous shloka is linked with this shloka. Due to this nature of Atma Swarupam, or the nature of Atma, the 2 ways of understanding, I am the killer or I am being killed, both are ignorant. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. From the previous one also, it is just linking it back into this shloka. Ya enam vetti hantaram iti anena mantrena hanana kriyayaha. So here he is talking about the mantra that comes in the Kathopanishad. That was the previous shloka, right? Yayenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tau na vijanitah nayam hantina hanyate. So he's trying to bring the nayam hantina hanyate, which was told earlier, being linked to why the Atma as a base is free of this aspect of the cycle of birth and death, is the link that Acharya makes here. Bhagavan established that Atma is neither the doer nor is in the action of, or neither gets killed nor is in the action of killing. That is the way that the previous shloka went. In this shloka, Najayate, Bhagavan also established that the Atma undergoes no change, providing the means that establishes that. If in the previous shloka, I have to say that it neither kills nor gets killed, I'll have to say why is it so, and that why is it so is being addressed in this shloka. That is what Acharya has said in this part of the Bhashyam. Going on to the 21st shloka, a very beautiful shloka, and one of the shlokas for which the Bhashyam written is pretty long. We will be in this shloka for quite some time. And the analysis that we will be going through in this shloka is remarkable. So just gear up yourself for a little long journey in this shloka. Now, people have, what do you say, because our buddhi is only always dissecting it, the chapter 2 has also been dissected. The first one, the 10 shlokas, are more along the lines of Shishya Atma Samarpan. Right? So we call it as Adhikari. Right? Establishing the Adhikari is what we did in the first 10 shlokas. From the shloka 11 to this 21st shloka, it is about the Atma Jnana. But there are traditions, like our tradition takes it up to 25th shloka. And there are some traditions which take it up to the 29th shloka. But the core concept about the Atma gets completed here. And Acharya has given this long bhashyam for that purpose only. Okay, so this is going to be a very interesting one that we will learn in the upcoming classes, including today. The shloka goes like this. Veda vinashinam nityam yayenam ajamavyayam katham sah purushah partha kam ghatayati hantikam. So, Veda, no, avinashinam, indestructible, nityam, eternal, ya, enam, one who or that which, enam, this, ajam, unborn, avyayam, unchanging, katham sa, how can that purushaha, partha, hey Arjuna, son of Pritha, kam gatayati hantikam. Ghatayati means to bring harm, causing a hurt, and hanti is to kill. So it is not a question, it is exclamation. Kam gatayati hantikam. Whom will he kill and who can get hurt, or who can kill and who can get hurt, kind of a stuff. Right? So it is more of an exclamation. Now here we look at Atma as akarta, non-doer, and Atma as na hetukarta. So there are two ways a karta is defined. One who is the actual performer of the, action. The other one is who induces someone else to bring that action into place. I'm asking Prabhakar to say, hey, can you get me a glass of water? Right. Now, Prabhakar is the person who is doing the action. But who is the Hetu Karta? It is me. In tradition, we always, in the class, we say that there will be people who will ask the question, right? And there will be people who will have the doubts, but they will ask the next person to ask the question. That person who is prompting the other to ask the question is the Hetu Karta. And the person who is asking is the Karta. Okay. The other term that is used is Karayita. And Karayita and Hetu Karta are one and the same. Yaha, one who has realized this nature of self. So here there is a clear shift that Bhagavan has done. Earlier, he was using the term yenam, this, referring to Atma as an object. But here, by using the term yaha, he is bringing it to the person who has realized this concept of Atma. And he says, how can he become the cause of hurting or killing? The indirect force behind the action. Right? For him, because he has realized the Atma, everything is him. There is no division. When there is no division, how can he do that? Is the basic logic that we apply on this shloka. And how does he identify Atma to be? That is what is being spoken here. Avinashinam. Vinash is a very common word. Destruction, avinash. That which is not subject to vinash, that which is not subject to destruction. Nityam, we have seen this. Ajam, we have seen this. Avyayam. Avyayam is the same as the apakshiyate. Right? So apakshiyatvam and avyayam have a very, very same similar meaning. Vyayam is to spend or for the value to go down. Apakshiyam is for the object to get deteriorated. They are kind of one and the same, but two terms are used and they have some important connotations under which it can be applied. And hence Bhagavan has applied both to the Atma. Katham, how, kam, who, ghatayati as a Hetu Karta and Hanti as a Karta. Okay, so as I said, there is an important change that must be taken into consideration. While all along, Bhagavan was speaking in direct reference to something called as Atma, na ayam hanti, ayam purana hai, etc. In this shloka, Bhagavan has shifted to the one who has the knowledge of Atma. So basically, he equates the jnani to an Atma. And for this, it is also referred to from an abhiman point of view. The abhiman that I have tells to what extent I consider myself as I. Right? So it is my family, it is my nation, right? So our thoughts are becoming larger with respect to that. But at the same time, the hands are, if it is paining, it is an object, you take it out. There is an abhiman that goes out, comes back, it keeps changing. The extent to which you can spread your eye is called as abhiman. And because for a jnani, the abhiman lies in the Atman, he cannot differentiate or distinguish between this and that. Because he also knows that there is no angam, there is no part, there is no division in the Atman. And when I see the division, I know that I'm not in the scope of Atma. Right? When my abhiman is the Atma Swarupam, there is no division that I can see between me and the world or between mine, whatever it is, and others. Those kind of divisions totally vanish. When that happens, how can he kill, or how can someone, become a Hetukarta, prompt someone to do something else? There are some traditions which speak of this to oneness of Jivan and Brahman. This is uh, uh, very specific to the Advaita Darshana, the kind of the same path that we are talking about, Advaita philosophy, where we talk about Jiva Brahma Aikyam. The Jivan and Brahman are the same. There is no division. Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Atma va idam. Right? All these are emphasizing that the division that we are making is only at the level of our buddhi and not in the reality. When we switch to the reality, that is when the division vanishes. That is what we in our tradition speak. But there are some other traditions which say that through this shloka, the Jiva Brahma Aikyam has also been established by Bhagavan. Okay, so these are all the ways that we will be looking at various ways to look at the shloka and understand it, to realize it, to allow that knowledge in us to shine and come about. So, in this shloka, Acharya emphasizes that jnani is karma abhavaha. The shloka says one who has developed the right understanding of the Atma, Yah, single word. Right? So, Veda Vinashinam Nityam. Right? So, what he says is one who has developed the right understanding of Atma and has developed the Abhiman towards that Atma will neither be a doer nor an inducer of an action. Right? Navadvare pure dehi. Naiva kurvanna karayan is the way. There is one more, shloka that will come later where he re-emphasizes on this. Basically, here Shankaracharya is interpreting this statement as one is freed from the bondage of karma, and specifically karma kanda. And this has been one of the point of contention between Visishtadvaitas, Dvaitas, and Advaitics. Right. And here, the understanding, we did discuss about it earlier too, to say that when he doesn't become a karta, so he becomes free of any karma. It doesn't mean he's not going to do a karma. It is just that he is free of being bound to that karma that he does. We will speak a lot more on this. What Acharya is pressing is to say that karma kanda is driven by the desire towards a karma phalam. By the negation of kam ghatayati hantikam, the karma phala is voided in a jnani. And hence, karma does not bind a jnani. That is what we need to keep in mind. With this, we can proceed to the bhashyam. Gear up yourself for a long, very interesting Q&As, etc., with the Purva Paksha that we will see. Veda Vijanati Avinashinam Antyabhava Vikara Rahitam Nityam Viparinama Rahitam, etc. Now he is just basically jumping into each of those words. The concept that he is trying to establish in this part of the Bhashyam, it is basically providing the meaning. When one realizes that Atma is free from the properties that have been said in the shloka, Atma is Avinashi, one that has no destruction. Atma is Nityah, one that is eternal. Atma is Ajah, one which is not born. Atma is Apakshayam, one that does not deplete or age. How can that person assume Atma will kill someone or have someone killed by influencing another to kill? As in, how can such a person engage in the act of killing or getting someone killed? That is the basic meaning that Shankaracharya introduces this shloka with. Literally giving the meaning of the shloka. Na katham chit kinchit घातयति इति उभयत्र आक्षेप एव अर्थः प्रश्नार्थ संभवात्. Okay, because prashnartha asambhavat, it's joined together. The way that it will go is prashnarth asambhavat becomes prashnartha shambhavat. Now, what Bhagavan is saying is exactly the one that I just spoke about, to say that the way, when literally it is a question, kam ghatayati hantikam, he says that it is not a question, it is an akshepa, it is an objection. It is saying that the possibility does not exist. So that is what Shankaracharya has spoken about in this part of the Bhashya. The aspect of resembling, the term resemble is to emphasize Atma not to be made an object, but comparing it to an object, giving the limitation of the mind. Yeah, right? That is the main, this is our observation. Right? When Shankaracharya has spoken and through the tradition it has come through, right? The way that we see it is the aspect of resembling. Right? The term resemble is to emphasize that Atma not to be made an object, but comparing it to an object giving the limitation of the mind, given the limitation of the mind. That is the only way somebody can speak or teach about it. Right? So it is deliberately objectified, but we repeatedly tell you that it is the subject that is being spoken. The problem and the reason why it is repeatedly said is whenever we say subject, immediately the I comes to the mind. But the problem is the mind has seen I as an object now. So it has objectified. We have to delete, we have to remove that objectification of the I and make ourselves as the king of the world. Right? There is a very beautiful mantra that comes in the Taittiriya Upanishad, and we also use it as part of the Shanti part, Aham Vrikshasya. Right? So here, this person is like a beggar, not having anything, but he is feeling himself at the top of the Kirti. Right? So he says, like on top of the mountain is his Kirti. That becomes your level of confidence. That becomes your level of oneness. And it will not be a confidence or oneness. It will just be your nature that you actually are. When you become that, you are objectified. When you are that, you are the subject. And the difference between the two is so subtle that it is impossible to communicate, and it is very easy for one to understand, but very difficult to stay in that level of understanding. Now, alternately, the statement can be expressed as the intent being establishing Atma as Nirvikar. That is the other possibility of taking this shloka. Okay, having no change should be seen in the same line as tulyam, one being prohibited, pratishedh, from all kinds of activities. Now, Gita Press has taken this line, but in our tradition, we are using the term tulya to be cautious about not objectifying the soul. Okay, so in Gita Press, you will see the Bhashyam, given by Acharya, and there is a Hindi translation that is given next to it. That Hindi translation has taken this meaning, while in tradition we follow the other meaning. The act of killing is only used as an example, implies all activities that are transactional in nature is the emphasis. At this point, the big Q&A session starts, and we will jump into our Q&As and get into the Purva Paksha and Acharya's response in our next class. Okay, so taking a break here. Prabhakar Bhaiya.
Super, super. I'm just taking it in. No questions, etc. Just
Awesome.
finding how do I make myself aligned to this.
Yeah. When you try to make yourself aligned to it, you have divided, if you can see in your own, right? So that division has to go. And the division goes by realizing the division. That's all. And remember, it will keep coming. But there will be a point where that realization will become more of a playfulness. Right. And you will see that you are in the realized state at all times. And that which comes and goes is, right, we just say is as a play, kiridam, is the way that we use the term. But the thing is, what you're asking is the best question, I would say. How can I become that? When you ask that question, this is the basics of mumukshutva, the desire to elevate, to to expand yourself. But realizing that such a thought is basically dividing, but that is my objective, without the thought dividing me and the objective. And that comes with bhakti, as we will see from the chapter 7 onwards. So the devotion becomes devotion becomes an integral part to it, but at the same time, the term ananyas chintayanto mam, right? The ananya bhakti is one of the support mechanism to achieve overcoming the natural division that the mind does.
This takes me back to your earlier one on Aham Brahmasmi. This takes me back to your earlier explanation on Aham Brahmasmi.
Aham Brahmasmi. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hiranyagarbha. Speaking about Aham Brahmasmi. Nice one. Nice example. Hats off to you. Okay. Let us proceed to Jyotiji. Jyotiji, Jai Siya Ram.
Jai Siya Ram Bhaiya. No questions, but this part was really good where you said that Atman is neither a doer nor the inducer, which is so profound, I felt.
Yes.
And it really touched me because everything that we are doing is all what we think we can do, and we do it. But when it comes to that Atman, it is kind of equivalent of Shunya or Om.
No, that is a place where you need to be very careful. Don't get into the Shunyavada.
Okay.
And that is what will be addressed in the 47th shloka, which is Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu ma te sangostva karmani. So here, the moment you get into the Shunyavadham, you become an akarmi. We should not become an akarmi. karma, we will talk about it in the 3rd chapter too. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatushtatya karma krita. Right? So, yavasham karma is the way. Without any vash in you, you are bound by the karma. Removing the karta bhavam from the karma is the objective, not
Yes.
shunyavadam. It's
Got it.
very subtle in nature. Shunyavadam comes from more of the Buddhist tradition, at least in one of the branches of Buddhism.
Yes. But yeah, that kind of stayed with me, that Atman is neither a doer nor it's it's just pure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Shambhaya is there or?
Shambhaya is not there.
Okay. Okay. ठीक है. Chalo, we will take a leave today and we will meet again in our next week's class. Harihi Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnad Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.